Hey guys, this is GoldenEye DS, and this is Xenosaga Episode 2, Jenseits, und Böse. I've got a bunch of things I'd like to talk to you about in this episode. I've done this commentary so many times because there are different things that I want to get from each commentary, so I ended up writing them all down, so I've got a really good idea of what I wanted to cover. At the end of the episode, I do have a little bit of sort of talk about a few things that are kind of explained at the very end in the cutscenes of this episode. As not to spoil them, I will kind of present the base ideas, but not how they tie in to the later bits at the end of the episode. So what we'll start talking off about is in this game. Well, actually, first we'll wait till this fight. Basically, in the last episode, I do apologise, but I said that slash was strike. Now, the sword symbol, as you can see of the glare, is actually slash, and that is SL. You'll see it in attacks and stuff. Strike is the more fist attack, which you'll see when Ziggy gets a go, because all of his attacks are fist. Well, most of his attacks are strike. In fact, I'm also thinking about changing both the physical and the, there you go, you see them on there, the physical to the P and the ether to the E, making it much easier for you to notice what's what, and that also means I can probably update a few other things, which looks cool. I really do like doing pixel art. I love, the last thing I did it for was 3-5 over 2 days, just making chests, but it's a lot of fun, especially when you've got something to look at and think, oh, is this how you do? Okay, and it's a real perfectionist kind of thing in a way. I love it. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about was also Shion. There's a lot of retconning between Xenosaga 1-2 on the DS and the Xenosaga 1 and 2 on the PS2. And one of the things they do is Shion's a lot more anti-Realian almost. She has all these speeches about it, but there's one segment, I think near here, where she loses it. Loses it. Momo just like shouts at her, and really annoying. In this, a few scenes where you can see that kind of anti-Realianism coming out. That's something you might want to remember for episode 3. There's a lot of character tearing in that game. So awesome, but a lot of character tearing. It's amazing. So the next thing is, obviously we're inside Sakura's subconscious domain. And one of the interesting things, I was reading the plot analysis for this game by a gentleman, and it was fascinating, because originally I thought that the reason why the beach had turned to winter was because of the animosity, or how Albedo was mentally starting to fall apart. You know, we saw that in some of the cutscenes before, and this happened. We assumed that there was a period of time between the two of them. They didn't just go straight into this after. Well, maybe they did, but even so, that would represent maybe the animosity, maybe between all of them. But actually, I was reading the guide, and one of the interesting ideas that was brought forward by it was that it might not be that. It might actually be that Sakura herself is very ill now, very ill, and the whole ice, snow kind of represents that, the cold, harsh grasp of death, that kind of shit. But yeah, that was quite interesting. Obviously, there's an area later on which we will talk about, which adds even more to that feeling, emptiness as well. One thing you want to do is, up that slope is an Ether Pack M, as you can see by the sidebar now, which has saying it's 1 Ether Pack M, and it's corresponds to the 1 on there. The 2 has an SA after it, that means segment address, which means we can't get it yet until we get the decoder, and you'll find out what segment address it is. It is in fact 12, so you need decoder 12 to get in there. I think that's end game stuff, but I'm not too sure yet. So yeah, one thing to note is they completely removed Sakura's death. Now, this was what I was getting to by saying that she was ill, and that she didn't have very long left, because between this point in the memories and when obviously they go on the third descent operation, well, within a year-ish, Sakura has died, I'm pretty sure, because that's about the same time that Momo is kind of brought to life. So we know that she's died. We know Sakura dies at the end of this. This isn't a spoiler, but the game doesn't make any difference of it. In fact, I can't pronounce the name, but the creator of this, who I think got kicked off the team, I mentioned that in the last episode, basically said that this area is probably one of the only areas in the game that remained tolerably faithful to the original ideas that she had. However, Sakura's death is not shown. There are three different explanations, or 3 different reasons of how she dies. One of them is she simply passes away, and that was the Xenosaga 3 database's explanation of it, which kind of sucks, doesn't really tell us anything about how she dies. There was another one, which was that she kills herself in front of Yuli Mizrahi, which again explains why Yuli was so screwed up and did not want to really meet or have anything to do with Momo, and yet at the same time kind of wanted her safety, because she didn't want, obviously, it's the daughter that she's lost all over again. If she killed her in front of her, no wonder that's the case. But anyway, it's, in the end, it's just grim. It really is grim. I mean, it explains so much about the different characters in this. Now, the final one was all about Albedo. Now, during one of these dives, Albedo, obviously, after knowing that he can't die, I'm pretty sure, he tries to connect with Udo. Now, Udo is the fear that Sakura holds, and one of the reasons why her disease exists. Similar to another character, we'll get onto that in a little bit. But anyway, her Albedo tries to link with Udo. He fails, ultimately, thanks to Sakura. Now, I don't know in this point if Sakura understands that he can't die, or if she's actually not protecting his life, but protecting what he turns out to be, protecting him from this fear by killing herself, sacrificing herself. I don't know her pure motives. 15, sorry, not 12. But there were motives there to save him regardless, and she did. She saved him, but she died. Now, there is almost this duality that both could have happened at the same time. By her death trying to save Albedo also led to her saving Momo, to her killing herself in front of Yuli. Another thing to mention is Albedo hates Sakura, but she just sacrificed herself for him, and that's going to have some effects on him and Rubido and a bunch of other things, which we'll mention at the end of the episode. But yeah, there's whole 3 things about how she dies. None of them are true. Like, the last one was from Xenosaga 1 and 2 on the DS, and that makes it necessarily less true. Especially considering there are mistranslations all around, which also state that Albedo came out of that experience and bragged to Rubido that he killed her. Which again is pretty good, and I've seen some translations of him killing her, but I honestly do not know. There's a lot of contention on that one point. Another thing that was removed is, about the end of this, we also know that Yuriev isn't in the future. Well, Negredo actually shoots him during the events of the fifth descent operation, which is where, obviously, the link gets broken and Albedo first gets his taste of Udo, which was actually, he didn't want that, actually. He was really scared of that, which is bizarre that he tried to, there's this slight disconnect that I'm not too sure myself in that. But yeah, he shoots Yuriev, and that doesn't get mentioned it doesn't get mentioned at all, which is something we should probably mention at this point to kind of keep you in the loop of what's going on, because up to this point, as I said before, it's kind of faithful-ish to the original idea, whereas after this disc, not the case. The second disc is really not faithful at all to what we imagine, or to what the original creator said. But yeah, when you think about that, you start to realise that this game has a lot of depth to it, and because of that, I just can't think that name relevance isn't completely relevant. They aren't all relevant in some way to the character development, the areas, and the plot that goes on. Because then you've got a line. There's 2 examples which kind of show off how forethought Xenosaga was. How, like, at the beginning of the conception of the game, how a lot more was thought about than just the first game. Now, yes, you could say, well, is that a surprise? They started off wanting to make 6 games, but they put so much detail about that into the first game. For example, Negredo at one point, after meeting Shion, says something like, "It can't be," and acts a bit off with her. That's because, well, that's we think because he sensed Udo in her. Now that is foreshadowing that you don't understand until you play the games again, and even then you don't necessarily understand that's what he's getting at. Really good foreshadowing, because it's there, but you just don't pick up on it, because at that stage you don't even know about Udo. You don't know anything. You've barely begun the first game. And then in the Utic place, they also mentioned Telos, which I mentioned originally in the game. She was, she is a character and she appears in episode 3, and they were already designing her like in 2000. Like, she was already in the game as like on a drawing board that you saw somewhere, and you were like, ah. And obviously replaying that gets a foreshadowing, but replaying that game, you're like, wow, that was really well done in advance. Another thing to mention is this beach is actually, one of the ideas about it is it's, instead of having the fact that obviously she's near death, is that it's to do with, if you remember when Andrew Cherenkov died, or we killed his Gnosis form, he became Gnosified and we set him free from that shell. We saw him at a beach. Now that beach is effectively what's known as the collective unconscious. The interesting thing about that is it was kind of grey, and there was interesting that this kind of looks similar, and there are some people who theorise that this actually might be the beaches of the collective unconsciousness, which again furthers the idea that that Sakura is near death because she's near joining with the collective unconsciousness. She's near. This is something which is only mentioned in the Xenosaga 3 Perfect Guide, and I'd highly recommend you check that out. But basically, the collective unconsciousness is where everyone goes when they die, because the universe is split up into both the physical realm and the imaginary realm, and split into the upper domain and the lower domain. Now, the lower domain consists of the physical realm and the imaginary realm. Imaginary realm consists of things like it's made up of imaginary numbers, which is what I was explaining of how the what's it called? The Hilbert effect works, because it creates this communication, this intermediary language between this imaginary numbers per se and real numbers. Now that's obviously a mathematical impossibility at this stage, but later on down the line in Xenosaga, obviously they've figured that out, and that's the reason that it works. Now, all gnosis exist on the imaginary realm. They can affect things in the physical realm, but also when someone becomes gnosified, their physical realm state leaves the physical realm and exists in the imaginary realm. Now, someone can actually join with what's it called? When someone dies, their physical realm self dies, and their imaginary realm self floats off to the collective unconsciousness. Now, if this is the beach pictured with Cherenkov in the collective unconsciousness, we can assume that Sakura is quite near death. That's another kind of interesting point, that there's so many things like that. So before we get too far into this, because I've literally mentioned all I had to mention when I've got so much more to go in this episode, but well, let's take a look at the map system in the left. As you notice, we've got 1 and 2. Yeah, they correspond to the numbers that are there, the items which are there, which is easy. I'm not sure whether I'll keep doing that, because it does take a little bit of extra work to do, but I will notice where the items are. An SA is segment address, which is 15, which you've already mentioned, I'm pretty sure. And I think segment address, yeah, I'm pretty sure the 15th segment, 15th decoder, you get like end game, or post game, because this game has a lot of post game to it, which is surprising. I can't wait to take on the post game, because I've never done it before, and it's going to be hard. And this game, you can't really do too much grinding unless you, I guess you can skill grind by finding enemies that have the highest skill point output, and kill them all on what's it called? Kill them all on skill boosts. But if that's the case, you're going to eventually run out of class points. Although, are you? Because every time you finish a class, you get more class points. So you probably will run out, because you'll need to keep defeating bosses. Because that must mean there's a finite number of class points, which means that do you have enough class points to unlock every class with every character? That's interesting. I could probably work that out, actually. I actually will look at that over the holiday. No, because I'm not taking the guide with me when I go away. I guess there must be a guide on the internet with accurate class points that I can look up each of the bosses and work out how many class points you get in a lifespan. But there we go. So yeah, there's a lot of different things. Another thing about Xenosaga is originally Xenosaga, as most of you know, was meant to be this awesome, epic game that was... epic six-part game, 6 episodes. In the end, we got 3 episodes, the 3 episodes, a mobile game, and a series of flash images covering the time in between the mobile game, and I think that was it. I always thought there was one more, but there isn't. Basically, that covers exactly what happens in Xenosaga 1 and 2. the original. I have the original sexology, whatever that's called, sextupology. I don't know. Sextuplets is or sextuplets, and I think sextuplets. Yeah. So basically, think about that. That if all these games corresponded to just 2 of them, that would have been so epic, unbelievably so. But sadly, no. Pied Piper is all about Ziggy's backstory, and anyone you talk to about Ziggy will fan like nothing else, because Ziggy, they removed, I think he was meant to have his backstory appear in either this game or the 3rd game. They removed that. They totally removed that. And that is just so sad, because Ziggy's backstory is really just awesome. It's awesome in the sense that it's so sad, and I'm going to make a separate video about that, and also a separate video about the, what's it called? The Another Year, or sorry, A Missing Year, which is the bit in between Xenosaga 2 and 3, because 1 and 2, it's like, oh yeah, 1 and 2, you know, they start pretty much exactly as they leave off. 2 and 3, now there's a year in between that we've got to cover, and boy does that introduce some things that, originally playing the game, I was like, what's going on here? They do kind of, I think they do give you some hints to what goes on, but in general, it's really confusing. Anyway, now we're in this area. You see what I mean by it's empty. Originally it was this long stretch up to the precipice we saw earlier on, but now things have fallen away, it's wind, it's full of enemies, it's treacherous conditions. Now if this doesn't kind of suggest that she's the further we get to the beach, to the point to heal her, the worse she's got, which might mean the drop zone is safe enough a distance away. Here we can start to look at how she actually is doing, which obviously isn't very good at all.
They were no match.
No, they weren't. So with these little boxes, these little things which tell you what 1 is, what 2 is, and what 3 is, they will disappear every time we've got them. But also, the numbers will disappear, not the numbers on the actual map will disappear. This is because I actually physically do not have the time to make all these separate maps and load them in a different way. It's time consuming, and in the end of the day, whatever. At least it shows you where you are at any point in the video. But I don't know if I will keep the whole title. It's a whole like displaying what things are what, because we get them in the course of the video anyway, so it's a bit pointless. Now these fights are a total bitch. They literally jump in, and that's it. They just slash you with their slash and L poison. Now Ziggy's always been poisoned, and Pokemon poison isn't too bad. Like, I don't mind, it's not terrible. I mean, okay, yes, it pretty much stunted my lead in Pokemon Generations, but I don't mind it too much, unless it's toxic and you've got badly poisoned, and that can tend to screw with you a bit more. But in this game, it takes off like 10% of your HP each time. It's awful. It really is bad, so you want to heal it as soon as possible. But luckily, you can heal, and then once you've healed, it will then take off damage, unlike Ni no Kuni, which you're healing, and it'll take off damage beforehand, and the healing will take such a long time that you'll be dead before it's got there. Freaking warm-up items. I'm nearly completed that game now. Nearly. So close. I'm just at the final dungeon. I know it's the final dungeon. Okay, so those of you who played the game will get that. It's really awesome. Definitely something I would play. Battle system's significantly complicated, but I like this kind of battle system more, where it's about character development, not character development, and catching the right monster that's ridiculously powerful. Because it means that now I've pretty much played the entire game with the originals. I'm screwed because I realise how crap they are. But anyway, there we go. Ziggy can tank the poison. It's ridiculous. If you look at his HP, 600 HP is less than a half. Yet Momo, that's like 400 HP, is well over half. I mean, Ziggy is just a powerhouse of HP. I mean, 1,700 now. And that's like 3 times-ish more than Momo. See, when I was originally recording this, I said, oh, skill point times 4, that means everyone gets like times 2, 2.5 skill points. Then I realised that if you times the total number of skill points by 4, it's so stupid. Anyway, make sure that Junior has got, at this stage, Psycho Pocket and Rare plus 10, and give that same thing to make sure Ziggy has Psycho Pocket. Doesn't need Rare plus 10, but it's good to have. I know I sound like a broken record, but right there is where we finish off. And I want to make sure we've got everything that we need. because this item that you steal here is essentially, because I won't have time to explain in the battle, is essentially... I love that. I won't have time to explain in the boss battle coming up, but I'll have time to explain in these generic battles. Yeah, basically, it's a jewel. It's called an Awakening, and it's a dual item. So it's an item which allows a double attack between two characters. I think this one is Momo and Cosmos, although I can't remember. So you one of a kind, and they sell for quite a lot, but you can't get multiple of this particular one. You can't steal more than one of it. Now there is a character later on who you will have to steal a lot of, because if you remember, we've got Matthews has a lot of debt. Did we do that? A lot of debt to pay off. Well, anyway, we get a massive side quest. We have to pay off like a load of debt, which is fundamentally broken in this game because we can't actually get items. We can't buy anything, we can't sell anything, we just have to sell them to him. So the things you can get from certain enemies, like junked circuits in the next area, and they sell for a little bit, so they'll help like relieve the burden. But realistically, there is a tactic to one of the bosses much later on, to basically stealing an almost infinite amount of these. You only need to steal 20, but that's still 20 rare steals you need to do in one tough boss battle before you can kill them and then move on. But yeah, a lot of fun. That's going to be fun. I had trouble with that boss fight originally. I only dread to think what'll happen when I get to that stage. It'll be devastating. Absolutely devastating. But yeah, also, as I was saying before about this whole area being, you know, about Sakura's death, if we're going along the lines of the rough how Albedo's feeling, it can also be that Albedo's mind is beginning to worsen, and we'll see why that is. Because not all of what happens in the next cutscene is actually in memory. Things are starting to have been changed, which I think what you can do in the subconscious domain, you can change things around, but I don't know how things react to that. I mean, it's crazy. It's like the holodeck. This is essentially the holodeck in Star Trek Next Generation. Apart from this technology is a bit cooler, I think. Being able to dive into someone's mind, that's cool. But this is like 1,000 years in the future, whereas it's only 400. But no, that's because there was this confusing comment made on the original video. This was to do with they only experienced about 400 years in, or was it like less than that? But this is actually the translator was really unsure about what they meant because it was backwards to how we're used to it scientifically, I think. But basically, 1,000 years in the future. But because they were traveling at light speed, the time that actually passed was far less, which I think is true because if you send, no, it's not true. That was the thing which was confusing, because if you have someone on Earth and send someone to go to the moon at light speed and back, no, she's going to be younger, isn't she? Wow, there's the two twin syndrome. Is she younger or is she older? I think she's younger, because travelling at the speed of light, time is different. I can't remember that one, but it's like that. I used to love black holes, and that was a book about black holes. So, but yeah, it was it's something like that anyway. So they've not really been 1,000 years, and the technology has improved at this level. In fact, we've created like Realians, which are really awesome. I mean, and the fact that Realian rights have come in so quickly as well, which is brilliant, because the last thing I want to do is again, another parallel to Star Trek. It's not another parallel to Star Trek. I'm just noticing something else with Data. Obviously, they were trying to class Data as a property. Anyway, you see those fans? They've fallen down. They're broken. Again, another hint something's gone wrong here. And this is an image created inside her mind. I don't need to say much more, but that is quite a powerful image if you believe both of them. Both of the scenarios that we've been talking about for this area that actually wasn't in the DS version. So I don't know what to think about it, really. Anyway, after you've done that, what you want to do is head back and heal everyone, because, well, you can heal everyone there. You want to get... Pardon me. A little bit of mini sick there. You want to make sure you get full EP, because this battle requires you to use a little bit of EP. But no, it's a really awesome battle. If you can do it right, it makes you feel like a certified badass, which is always the best thing about these battles. And the fact that movie studio is now fixed. Again, I've had problems with, because I'm running at the moment 9 video tracks and 3 audio tracks, which isn't, no, sorry, 2 audio tracks, which isn't much. But the video tracks, I've got the original video, the original video stretched out and gauzy and blurred. I've got the background, the Xenosaga blah blah background. I've got the original video. I've got the 3 layers which are dedicated to the little enemy buyers in the side. I've got 2 layers which are dedicated to the overlay and the map, and the final one which is dedicated to the text. It's just so much. I have never done a project that this complicated. And my computer can render in about an hour if I've got my GPU acceleration, which seems to crash halfway through. Because it's gauzy and blur. It's gauzy and blur. Like, I might honestly turn it off if things keep like, keep this crap. Anyway, make sure you move Junior into your team. Do it. Just make sure otherwise you'll effectively wasted a bunch of time. At this point, it's just best to check to make sure everyone's got Psycho Pocket, because if not, it's grinding time. And if you didn't get it by doing all the missions at the beginning, then you're hosed. At this point, just pretty much start again. It's much better start, well, at the end of the second disc, you don't want to start again, but hey, he's not going to get everything. We're going to take the swimsuit off Momo, because she's going to have enough trouble keeping up with the damage that Albedo is dealing out alone without the swimsuit and the extra 10 to 15%. To be honest, you can give the swimsuit to, I'm keeping it on Ziggy, because Ziggy doesn't matter, and Junior, you can give him the swimsuit if you want, but I'm not overly fussed. I mean, to be honest, Ziggy can tank it, he's got more than enough HP. Just making sure he's got all the relevant stats. I quite like this music. It is quite sinister with the deep bass in it, especially when you... this bit as well. I don't know, it is sinister in its simplicity, and then it's kind of like childlike sense. Maybe I'm just thinking far too much about this. Okay, yes. Make sure Ziggy has Psycho Pocket. 2 people with Psycho Pocket will speed up this battle just by undefinable levels. And then just this is me messing about going, is everyone ready? Is everyone ready? But yeah, quick. You won't find yourself using quick in this fight at all. Unless you really want Momo to get the extra goes in, which, you know, she gets in anyway. Yeah, we're going to waste some Class C upgrades. Are we? No, we're not. We've already wasted some of those, so there's no point. Oh no, we are going to waste them. Brilliant, yeah. Sorry, I've totally forgot. This is the bit at the end of the episode that I always forget. I don't know why I gave them to her. At all, because I then don't use them. Oh no, I do. Charge timer critical +5. Critical +5? It's worth doing, but I'm not going to do it, which is a total shame, because that would have, that might have actually really helped in the boss fight. Come on, just select critical +5. There we go. Yes. So with that, we head into the boss. See you guys later. Take care. Take care? Yes, have fun with the boss fight. It's a lot of fun, and especially the cutscene beforehand. But yes, let's plow on with Junior. But no, we don't want to. We want to run in with Momo, because that's kind of ironic considering we're trying to save her, and yet she's in the fight. I never got that, how she was able to walk around and fight. Apparently it's all reactionary, without a personality layer, but whatever. See you after the fight, guys.
Sakura! There's nothing here today. If we run, we'll be at the beach in no time. Why not? Let's go. First, we'll cure your illness, then we'll go to a real beach.
Rubido, look!
What do you know, Rubido? You're just like me, aren't you? Rubido's a monster too. It all makes perfect sense. Once, the 2 of us were one, so if I'm a monster, that means you're a monster too. Oh, this is wonderful. I'm so happy.
Wait! This isn't my shadow!
Rubido, calm down. Please don't get angry.
I'm not a monster!
Can you still feel the beating in your chest, Rubido? Can you still feel my heart buried in the right side?
Rubido, it's a trap! Rubido, no!
Chief, the encephalon field structure has started to rapidly collapse. It's not a problem with the system. It was probably another trap inside Momo.
We should have known. Albedo anticipated the likelihood of an encephalon dive.
Did you say Albedo? If he was an acquaintance of Sakura Mizrahi as well, then it may have been part of his plan to bring Junior here.
A bypass intrusion into the encephalon?
Such a sweet smell, Rubido. The smell of rage evaporating off your body. Sure you don't suffer from excessive norepinephrine?
Junior!
Junior, calm down. Don't you want to make peace with your brother?
Peace. I'll have you know, Rubido and I are the best of pals. Yes! That's it, come on! Unleash what you've been holding in all these years.
I'm gonna take you down! You're gonna regret this!
Sounds like fun. Give it a try.
And straight into combat. Now this fight that I've been bigging up for 3 videos now has a really straightforward way around it. Now he deals Thunder Blast attack that you just saw, and 2 hit everyone attacks, which 1 drains damage and causes status. Well, 1 drains damage, 1 deals a lot of damage and causes status infliction that you see there. That one's the more powerful of the 2, but the other one he does drain HP, and he does punch people randomly, but we won't be getting to that part of the fight, because this is actually a really straightforward fight if you follow these instructions. Stock everyone up to maximum. Then when done, with anyone, usually Ziggy and Rubido are done stocking first, because Momo is removing status inflictions, health, all that kind of jazz. Once she has, basically with everyone else, what you want to be doing is Psycho Pocketing, trying to steal an Awakening 1, which is a double attack. You really want. This is the only point in the entire game you can get it from. Don't get it here, it's gone forever. You'll never get it. So you want to try and steal that. If you want to, you can steal the Ether thingamajig, Ether Upgrade E, sorry, for because it's quite good. I think the E's are the best. So you can try and steal one of those. Not Ether Upgrade, Class Upgrade, no, Skill Upgrade, blah blah blah, words, many words. This is, in the actual battle, I had everything nearly set up, and then I totally forgot what was going on. Once you've Psycho Pocketed, you want to be Flame Swording everyone, and just making small attacks. So the idea with what you're supposed to do is he's got his arms, he will defend, and you've got to break his arms. Once you've broken his arms, you get a very, very small gap in which you want to unload this break and AC fire combo, a tribute chain basically, and you really want to do that. Basically, there you go. There's one of there's his regular punch attack, and that's pretty much all the attacks that I've ever seen him pull off. He can be quite hard if you don't use this particular one, but since we already stole Awakening pretty much first go, and once you flame sworded everyone, now start attacking them, and just listen to things he says when you attack him.
That's it, I love it.
Ooh, that's it, it tingles! And I just love him, I just love Albedo. So, flame sword everyone, but make sure the opening happens, because flame sword wears off between, I think, 3 or 4 turns. This also drains your boost. I didn't realise that, but apparently it does. Okay, so remember, just 2 attacks. Do not use your stock for this attack. For these attacks, you're just doing regular attacks to try and knock health down. And remember, keep everyone flame sworded. You need to make sure before you start this assault that everyone has about 2 to 3 turns left. Otherwise, this could go down really badly. So, we need to destroy his arms. We're doing a fairly decent job. 1 or 2 attacks might just do that. In fact, I think another attack will probably be it. Nope, another one. Right, now you've destroyed his arms, now is the time. He will regenerate his arms if you're not careful. So now is the perfect time to boost Junior, because we need to be able to boost Junior at a... well, Junior needs to be attack at the point where Ziggy can boost after him. So, now we're Junior, we boost Ziggy, and we start off with a square, triangle, BC, open. Now when Ziggy goes, we boost Junior again, and we try with a triangle, square, circle, 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 which will down him, so everyone can now hit him. Then, now we're him, we want to boost Momo and continue to load a bunch of circle attacks. Notice the AC fire is going up. This helps you out so much. Now with Momo, you want to unload a full circle attack, and just all the circles, and notice she's dealing really high damage for a boss. And that is it. The battle is done. If you can get them on a skill point, it's so much fun. Anyway guys, I'll see you after the cutscenes, because there is a few things that I want to talk about at the end of the episode. But yes, he's actually really straightforward, and you get a lot of experience points from him.
No, Junior! If you fight Albedo, you'll just be hurting yourself.
Wait, Xion. Junior is losing control.
You've got to hand it to him. He's trying to control his emotions. But his body hungers for combat. We are weapons, after all.
Stop!
You fell for it, ma pesh. You're so easy to manipulate, my mechanical angel. Miss Rahi and his crazy whims. Anyone can see that it would have been smarter not to give you human emotions.
Momo, you're awake! What about the Y data?
It's gone. The thing we feared the most these last 14 years. The key. The wheels have been set in motion. They can't be stopped.
This is it. The key to the abyss. The gospel that will awaken Milsha. Rubido, are you looking at it? Come, let us share our new world.
Junior, what's wrong?
My chest. My right side. This pain. It's Albedo's. His heartbeat is fading. It can't be Albedo.
Save game data? Well, hell yes we do. And this is the end of this first disc. Now there's a few things I want to talk to you about the differences in those last scenes in the DS version and this version. If you want to stay, you do not have to listen to this, but also a little bit try and explain his motive on what just happened. And one thing to talk about first is when they said the Y data is gone, what they meant is that it had been leaked all across the UMN, so the UTIC and anyone else has their hands on it. What that means for the likes of Momo is that she's not going to be hunted for it again, which takes her out of the danger of being kidnapped. However, that also means now everyone has access to what the Y data was about, which has an incomplete translation of Lemmageddon, a bunch of other things that we haven't yet encountered. And they're also worried about getting into the wrong hands, and now it's got into everyone's hands. So the dangers that are now mounting, we'll see in the next disc, where Albedo steps down from being the main antagonist, and we get UTIC to be the main antagonist, which isn't surprising because they were after the Y data after all. Now the scenes which you saw where Albedo was basically had that aura of purple around him. That scene, we assume, was different to the original memories that were played there, because Albedo yet hadn't been in contact with Udo. In fact, that happens much later, as we know when they're in the third descent operation in Old Milsha. When Rubido breaks the link between them, as we saw in episode 1, that's when he first becomes in contact with Udo. So we assume that was basically Albedo's tinkering with the memories, and therefore the next trap, which this guy just constantly does. He is always 80 steps ahead of everyone else, and that's why I love him as being a character. But back to that, also, we had Sakura, who was with them in this dive, or at least appeared there. From this point onwards, we don't really see too much of Sakura, and when we do see her again, when we do see her again, it does raise some interesting questions about Momo, Junior, and Sakura, which we won't touch upon again until episode 3, mainly because there are some interesting segments near the end of the first disc of episode 3 which explain kind of about why Momo was created and where Sakura went when she died, which is an interesting point that we will get back to. Anyway, the reason why I want to try and keep you up with these kind of ideas is because it's easy for me to forget them and not cover them later on, but also it's good for those of you who've played the game to see what I'm talking about and make links, which really this game has so many that it's just awesome. So let's discuss Albedo's motive. Well, yes, there is method in his madness. He's not just insane and doing things for no reason. Everything he has ever done has been for one goal, which I'll explain later on in episode 3, mainly due to the fact that it's spoilers for that, but we can talk about a few other things. Basically, he wants to be part of Rubido. He wants to join with Rubido. I mean, he was part of Rubido until the 28th week. He needs Rubido in his life. We saw that by how clingy he was in the early episodes. But he just loves Rubido, and all he wants is Rubido to return that love. Now, you can imagine when Rubido gets involved with Sakura, he's going to be a bit jealous. And in fact, that jealousy could be one of the reasons, and that jealousy, which actually spread to hatred, deep-seated hatred, is part of the reason that he could probably very easily torture both the Kirschwassers, all pretty much 99 of them, and Momo. But it's deeper than that. There's another emotion playing here. During Xenosaga 1 and 2, which is the DS game, it's actually found out that Albedo attempted to contact Udo, which is strange because, as we all know, the contact was forced upon him when Rubido became frightened and dropped the link during the Milshan conflict. And he actually tried to contact Udo during the training exercise with both inside Sakura Mizrahi's subconscious domain. Anyway, as he tried to do it, Sakura saved his life by effectively jumping in front of him and taking the Udo wave hit, and it killed her. It outright killed her. And although Albedo hated Sakura, as we've mentioned before, he was guilty. Not just guilt, but terrible guilt. You can imagine this affecting someone who realized that he will live forever and everyone he knows will die. he's mentally falling apart already, and then suddenly, the person that Rubido loves gets killed trying to save him. And that's the guilt that he feels because he knows how much it hurts Rubido. And this is another thing which would lead to both the obsessions for the Kishvas and Momo, because the guilt and the hatred mixed together allowed him to do both terrible things to all 100 of these Sakura replicas. And when you look at that, you start to realize that his madness has method, and it's led by these feelings of deep-seated hate and deep-seated guilt towards the same person, which led to this. You start to understand that, and that's because of the game title, Jenseits von Gut und Böse, meaning Beyond Good and Evil, which are most of the characters in this game, which is why I love this series so much, because Beyond Good and Evil, well, yes, I think Albedo, I wouldn't say Albedo's evil, it's beyond that. It's beyond a simple evil or good, because each character has their own reasons for doing it, and their own perspectives, which may be warped by ours, but that doesn't make them good or evil in a definitive sense, because it's almost impossible to say that. And that's what this game has been getting at so far. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this little bit at the end. This is mainly so I can talk about topics later on that I'll remember to cover, and also just to kind of give insight for those of you who've completed the game. Anyway, guys, take care. See you later.